Listen up, beautiful people. I want to take just a minute to tell you about our new hosting site, Anchor. Anchor is your one stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. So go to anchor.fm/start and become part of the Anchor community today. And now, back to the show.
Alrighty, folks, welcome into another brand new edition of the 901 Soccer Podcast. I'm your host, Lawrence Docker. You can find me on Twitter at LDoc93. You can find the 901 Soccer Podcast on Twitter at 901 Soccer Pod. And you can find us on Facebook as well. Just go to Facebook and search 901 Soccer, and we should pop right up. Subject of the show this time out is going to be Memphis 901 FC versus Pachuca on Saturday night down at AutoZone Park, and the display that was put on by both teams there. And if we have time, we may briefly touch on the U.S. women's national team at the Women's World Cup as well as the men's national team at the Gold Cup, but we're going to have to wait and see how this episode plays out before we touch on all of that. But the big story, obviously, a little bit closer to home here in the 901 is, of course, Memphis 901 FC in their big-time friendly against Pachuca from Mexico. Pachuca, of course, one of the bigger clubs in Liga MX. They've won the Liga MX title a number of times. I believe they've won the CONCACAF Champions League 5 times, if I'm not mistaken. And this is a big deal for Memphis 901 FC. Memphis, they keep finding new ways to keep their name in the consciousness of the Memphis sporting public. What I mean by that is initially you had, the season opener, which generated a lot of interest in the first couple of regular season games at home. And then you had the U.S. Open Cup run, which generated interest and kept your name in the headlines. And now you've got a big-time exhibition-friendly type game against an international club from Mexico. And it was everything that I'm sure the folks at Memphis 901 FC had hoped for, at least in terms of publicity, exposure, media coverage. The result on the field really didn't, how do we want to put this? It was bad. That, I guess you could say, was to be expected, even though Memphis is in mid-season form and Pachuca is in their preseason. But, the announced attendance on Saturday night was 8,351. That's the largest crowd of the season for Memphis 901 FC, even eclipsing the season opener against the Tampa Bay Rowdies, which I believe drew 8,026. If somebody's got the exact number out there, feel free to shoot that our way. But I'm pretty sure it was 8,026. And so you look around, and this is you could probably say this is the first home game where Memphis 901 FC supporters were outnumbered by supporters of the other team. Which, when it comes to Mexican clubs playing American clubs and the U.S. men's national team playing El Tri, Mexico's national team, that's typically the case. So, really not a surprise. What was surprising is the sheer number of jerseys of non-Pachuca Mexican club sides in the crowd at AutoZone Park, which I thought was just fascinating. Obviously, there were a good number of Pachuca jerseys. There were a lot of Mexico jerseys, just El Tri, the national team, mostly the green, the traditional green jersey, which are aesthetically quite pleasing. I saw one or two Rafa Marquez jerseys. Blech. Yeah, that's my opinion of Rafa Marquez. Supremely talented individual. You gotta hate him. There were a couple of orange Mexico jerseys that they rolled out for the 2014 World Cup, and to me, those are some of the worst international soccer jerseys I've ever seen in my life. Why is Mexico wearing orange? I don't know. There were a lot of, actually, Club America. There was some Santos Laguna. There were one or two Chivas jerseys rolling around in there. Ran into one dude who was rocking a Boca Juniors jersey, so shout out to him. And funnily enough, I believe Pachuca's coach at one point in time back in the day did play for Boca Juniors, so maybe that had something to do with it. But largest crowd of the night, and let me tell you what, folks, it was loud. Very, very, very loud. And it was all in good fun. Nobody, there weren't any incidents. Everybody got along and had a good time. The wave, which is just absolutely ubiquitous every time Mexico plays a game, and Nobody, I can't quite figure out why. I do know that according to Derek Ray, who calls games for Fox Sports now, so from Scotland, it's called World Cups for a number of broadcasters over the years, but he's doing the Women's World Cup in France right now and did the World Cup for Fox in Russia last summer as well. Learned watching him do a game in Russia last summer that the wave internationally is known as the Mexican wave because the first time anybody saw it was at the 1986 World Cup in Mexico. So, but the Bluff City Mafia got in on it. They got everybody started fired up doing the wave, and it made its way around the stadium. Everybody loves the wave. I don't get it, and people may rake me over the coals for this, but my all-time favorite reaction to the wave was, I think it was in like 2009 or 2010 at a New York Yankees game, and believe it or not, it was not. This is not going to go over well, but it was Donald Trump and Bill O'Reilly sitting right next to the visiting team's dugout, I believe it was, and the wave got around, and then just famous person Donald Trump kind of moved his arms, and Bill O'Reilly like waved his fingers, and that was it. And to me, that sums up everything that I think about the wave. But other than that, everybody had a good time at AutoZone Park doing it. On the field, yikes. I don't know really what else to say other than that. For the first half, Memphis pretty much went toe-to-toe with them, which was actually quite impressive, given some of the quality players that Pachuca was able to roll out there. And then in the second half, post-game, Coach McQueen said, the wheels kind of came off in the second half because Pachuca's got a lot of depth, and Memphis has a roster that you really cannot afford to make a vast number of changes in the second half and still expect to keep the intensity and the poise and the shape and all of that stuff. And it was 1-1 at halftime. Elliot Collier found the back of the net. Some fantastic build-up play through the midfield. Some 1-2 touches, give and go with Lagos Kunga. Kunga looked really good in the first half tonight. I think that's probably the first time we've said that since his debut here in Memphis. So he was quite impressive again in that first half against Pachuca. And so Collier gets the net, and it's 1-1, and Memphis had a couple chances, and Pachuca's had a couple chances, and you think, hey, anything can happen. And then the changes happen in the second half, and almost immediately the floodgates opened, and Pachuca went on a Golden State Warriors-esque tsunami roll. Final score ended up being 6-1. 5 of those 6 come in the second half. I mean, the difference in the quality and the depth is you went from second-string USL players, from first-string USL players to second-string USL players to first-string Liga MX players to also more first-string Liga MX players. When you're bringing a dude named Leonardo Ulloa off the bench who won the Premier League with Leicester City in 2016, and he immediately comes in and gets 2 tap-ins inside the 6-yard box, that's a gulf in quality that no amount of fitness, no amount of coaching, no amount of effort is going to overcome. But at the end of the day, the one, actually, before I move on, one thing that did surprise me was the level of intensity pretty much from start to finish. As Pachuca kind of came out and they were ready to just whack people. And there were a number, I'm talking 7, 8, 9, 10 heavy, hard fouls by Pachuca in the first half. Only got 1 caution out of it. And then right before the end of the half, Memphis started getting in on it. And Ewan Grandison, I believe, got a caution for I think it was persistent infringement, because I saw the referee, as he was pulling the card out, pointed to 3 different spots on the field and then pointed at Grandison. So that tells me that he said, no, you got away with this one, and this one, and now you're getting this one. So, but at the end of the day, it's just a friendly. I think Memphis got out of the game, aside from getting absolutely shelled. They did give up 2 golazos, and I'm always of the opinion that the term golazo is way overused in the American soccer culture, but that's a term fitting 2 goals that Pachuca scored in that second half, because they let fly from 35, 40 yards on 2 of them, almost back to back, and there's nothing that any goalkeeper is going to be able to do about those. So obviously you don't like to see your team get shelled 6-1. But you look at the difference in quality and realize it's just an exhibition. It's just a friendly. This was a good opportunity to get some of your guys that don't normally get minutes, get them some run out, get some game time in their legs, see what they can do. And you got the exposure, and that's the big thing, right? 8,351 people show up, largest crowd of the year. Everybody has a good time. Everybody goes home happy. You can say, obviously we want to win the game, don't want to get smoked, but it's just a friendly. You can put it out of your mind. And on the flip side, if you win the game, you can be like, oh, hey, look, we won, blah, 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 blah. That's the beauty of friendlies. If they don't go your way, you can just kind of write them off, and if they do, you can trumpet that and pound your chest and pat yourself on the back. One thing of note on the international level, the Gold Cup, the U.S. men's national team was playing their second group stage game at the Gold Cup against Trinidad and Tobago. That game was on in the press box, and that was a crazy first 10 minutes of the second half because as Pachuca went on a Golden State Warriors tsunami run, the U.S. men's national team also went on Golden State tsunami run, and I'm flipping back and forth between the field in front of me and the TV behind me, and that was quite chaotic and enjoyable, half of it anyway. Leston Paul of Memphis 901 FC did get, I believe he got, I know for a fact that he got to start. I believe he went the full 90. I don't know that for a fact. I think he went the full 90, but if he didn't, I guess I was wrong. I don't believe Dwayne Marquette got into the game, so not. I'm sure Memphis 901 FC did not get a shout out on the Fox Sports broadcast, but in my preview for World Soccer Talk, I made sure to give Memphis 901 FC plenty of love. 6-0, the final score for the U.S. Everybody who knows me knows I've been very critical of Greg Berhalter as a manager, as a motivator, as the process that led up to hiring him. Those two friendlies prior to the Gold Cup were disastrous. But over your first two competitive games as a manager, you've won them by a combined 10-0. There's really not a lot to complain about. Yeah, sure, you could have beaten Guyana. You could have put at least 3 more past him. You probably could have put 2 more in the first half against Trinidad and Tobago. 10-0 over the first 2 games, nothing to sneeze at. Do I think we would lose to Costa Rica? Yes, I do. Do I think Mexico would put 10 goals in on us? Yes, I do. But for right now, 10-0 in 2 competitive games, locked up a spot in the quarterfinals. That's only good news. And you know what? If you keep playing like this, you keep scoring and preventing other teams from scoring, there's no reason why you can't go on and win the Gold Cup title. But good to see Leston Paul get out there and get some run out for Trinidad and Tobago. And with Trinidad and Tobago losing and Panama winning on Saturday, that means that Trinidad and Tobago is officially out of the Gold Cup, cannot advance to the knockout rounds. So before too long, we should be getting Marquette and Paul back into the Memphis 901 FC squad once that final group stage game has been played. All right, I think that will wrap it up here for the night. I wanted to say thanks to everybody for listening. Oh, one final thing. Some of you may know and some of you may not know, the public relations specialist for Memphis 901 FC is a guy named Aldo Amato. He's a cool dude, always been very accommodating of me, of Scotty, of John Varlas with the Daily Memphian, Greg Gasson at Sports 560. Been very easy to work with, easy to get along with. Anything that we've needed, he's been able to give us. Saturday was his last game with Memphis 901 FC. He is moving to Nashville. So we wish him all the best, and we certainly hope that whoever fills in his shoes does just as good of a job as he has. All right, so now that'll wrap it up here for us tonight on the 901 Soccer Podcast. I want to say thanks to everybody for listening. Again, I'm Lawrence Docker. You can find me on Twitter at LDoc93. You can find the 901 Soccer Podcast on Twitter at 901 Soccer Pod. Find us on Facebook at 901 Soccer. This has been Lawrence Dockery recapping Memphis 901 FC against Pachuca. Thanks for listening.